Overboss by Brotherwise Games is a tile placement game based on the monsters of the Boss Monster universe. In this game, you become your master of an own dungeon. You'll have your own grid using unique pixel art style tiles and tokens. Each turn, you'll draft your tiles and your tokens using your monster's unique powers to then score the most victory points when your grid is fulfilled. The game has wonderful unique tiles and tokens. Each one scores points differently using a variety of abilities and synergies. The game ends when your grid is full. Whoever has points at the end wins. This game is quite simple. It only has 2 actions you take on a turn, and it can be over quite quickly. But that does not mean that it's a bad game. It's actually a really fun game. I'm going to go through the contents of the box, the setup, mechanics, and my final thoughts section for this game. Okay, first things first, let's unbox Overboss and check out the things inside. So, we have a small token bag. This is used to put all tokens in. You're going to shuffle it up, pull out tokens that you assign to different tiles. There'll be crystals in here too and mini bosses. We also have a nice little scorebook here. Plenty of pages there for 5 players and all different things you need. Dungeons, tile scores, mini bosses, crystals and such. This is the rulebook. It's actually quite small because the game, like I say, is really simple. It tells you what's inside the game, the contents. It's really simple. It's only a few pages long. It tells you what tiles do, places scoring tiles, and advanced game variants. Like I mentioned in my introduction, you can have boss cards, you can have command cards that can help out. Next, we have the solo mode campaign guide. This is really fun. It gives you different difficulty levels, different challenges. It's not just basically go through and get a high score. You have to do certain tasks. For instance, the first one here tells you to build a group of 3 forest tiles. At least one forest must have a matching kobold. I can just get scored 50 points, or build 3+1 tiles with 9+ points. And we also have a quick start guide here. Just the basics on 2 pages here. It's also handy to have out for newer players because it tells you what each tile scores, the mini bosses and crystals, and how you score monster tokens in one handy page, so it's really good for new players. Now inside the game. Now the game does come with its own unique little inserts. I do really appreciate games having their own inserts, it's really handy. So these are the boards, these are the 5 player boards here. You have the basic side and the classic side here. All it is just one side's a little bit shorter. This is a 4x3 grid, and the other side is a larger 4x4 grid, which gives you a longer game, make the game draw out a bit longer, get more challenges, more higher score points, more good combos of the tiles. Take off the top layer of the insert, and you see how cool is this down here. I mean, how nice does that look? It's really pleasing to see this stuff like this. So take off the top part of this. We have terrain selection cards and command cards. Terrain selection cards are used if you don't know what terrain you want to use when randomise up the terrains. You use these to tell you which terrain you want, so you aren't quite sure. There's 10 terrains to choose from. Shuffle them, they'll tell you what terrains to pick for your game. And command cards are used obviously to alter the playing area a little bit. You can change up the opponent's player boards or your own. We have portal tokens down here. These are used to switch around your monsters when you click one in your dungeon. We also have these unique small mini boss tokens. You can see right there. Just look at the artwork on these. These are great. My favourite one is the small brain monster with a little bow in its hair and its little teeth sticking out. It's really, I just love the artwork on this. It just stands out to me. We also have different tiles of different areas. We have dungeons, forests, graveyards, camps, caves, swamps. Then the advanced ones are castles, volcanoes, summoning circles, cloud islands, and deserts. Each one has its own unique way of scoring points. We'll go through that in a second, and the guide does tell you, but there is a little small reference here. It tells you what score you get. So this one tells me here, I get 1 point for this, +1 is next to another tile, and +1 is next to a water at the edge of my board. And what I like about this game is each single tile is different. Look at this, it's all completely different. Each one is unique. Kind of reminds me of Pokemon a little bit, you know, the top-down view of the pixel style. I know it's not based on Pokemon, but that's what it reminds me of. Each one's unique, each one's different, and each of these terrains come with their own set of unique monsters. I'll just show you a few down here. So these are the ones for the swamp area. A few are the same, but they're only the small tokens. Obviously, you get these out, put them on the area to score different points. If they match the terrain, you get even more points. The dungeon ones are quite unique. They don't have their own unique monsters, but they get different points for different terrain types around them on the board. And you'll also get the small crystal tokens down here. Once you draw one of these, you put it down on your board, and then you get more points based on how many tiles you have for the matching PC. So if I got a forest crystal in my area, I get extra points per forest in my game at the end of the game. And finally, we have the monster cards. We have all crazy names, crazy artwork style. I mean, look at the pixelated artwork, it's so great. Each one has a reveal ability, so you can flip it over, do the reveal ability. The reason why you have it face down is so the opponent can't see what monster you're playing and can't judge what kind of score you're going to go for, what kind of game you're going to play. And also, each one has a unique end game bonus. So for instance, King Croak here, I can flip him up to draft twice in one turn. Let's get my next turn. And also at the end of the game, score plus 2 points for each dungeon on your map at the end of the game. As opposed to someone like Killer. As an ability, once per game I can move a token on your map to a terrain tile without a token, and at the end of the game, if I have no bands of monster tokens at the end of the game, I score extra points. So it's really fun for this extra little variety. There's quite a few cards here, all unique artwork, all completely unique abilities, and they all play very differently. And that is it for the contents of the game. We're going to look at setting up a game for ourselves now, just a small quick solo game, getting a certain high score, and then I'm going to go through the mechanics as well. So, setting up a game for one player. Step 1, take a player board. For a classic game, you can use the 3x4 map. If you're longer game, you can use the larger 4x4 side. We're looking for a short game, just the 3x4 side down here. As you see your map down here, you have a space down here. This is where you put your crystals and your tokens that you can't place down. Also pay attention because the map does have a water side here and a few cave edges here. These are important for caves and swamp tiles. We'll go for that in a second. Next up, picking the terrain tiles. Now you can either use terrain selection cards, as I mentioned earlier, or just pick 5 randomly, or go for the basic ones, which will play best for your first game. So I'm going to go for the caves, the swamps, forests, the camp, the graveyard, and we also add the dungeon tiles as well, which are slightly less down there. Once you've got your terrain tiles out, collect the matching monster tile tokens that correspond to each of the terrain types. So I've got the graveyard types here, the camp types here, forest ones, swamp ones, and the cave monster tokens. Collect the mini-boss tiles. Collect the mini-boss tokens also, the portal tiles, the portal tokens, and also the crystal tokens that correspond to each of the available terrain types. So I've got one for a forest, one for a cave, a graveyard, a swamp, and a camp. Then we take all the terrain tiles, shuffle them together in a stack, and we take all of the tokens down here, that's monsters, mini-bosses, portals, and crystals, and put them together in our small token bag. Once all your tokens are in the bag, shake it up a little bit, so nice and shuffled. Take all your piles of face-down tiles, shuffle them, arrange them how you wish. I mean, I use stacks of 4, it's a little easy to control and manage. And then place 4 face-down in front of the players, in reach of everyone. Like so. Also, underneath each one, place a token. These might not match, but it doesn't matter, you can still score points and still play them. So here we go, completely randomed up and ready to play. So next up, playing the game. How do we play? So starting with the first player, continuing clockwise, each player will take a turn until every player's board is full of tiles. A player's turn is only just 2 simple steps, the draft and place phase. For draft, take 1 tile and 1 token and place it on the board. This is referred to as the market, so the game says take from the market, this is classed as the market, and place it onto your dungeon. So for example here, I'm going to draft. Now you can't pick this and this, it has to be a matching pair. They have to be together. So first of all, I'm just going to pick one randomly, so I'm going to pick the swamp. Next, you place on your open square on your map, which is a grid. Place the terrain tile in any square, and then next place your token. Tokens may be placed differently depending on their type. If it's a monster, you must place it down on a tile you have open. Obviously, if this is my first turn, I have to place this down here. But at some point later on in the game, if I had, let's say I had an open tile and I played this, I could choose to put this either here or here, it's up to me. As long as it goes down on an open tile, it can't go anywhere else. If you draw a dungeon tile, these cannot have monsters placed on these. If you do this and you have a monster and know how to put it, you must place it in your layer down here. Then on a later turn, when you place a tile down, you have the option to move the token from there onto one of your available terrain tiles. If you collect a crystal or portal token, these will go down here for the remainder of the game. I'll explain what crystals and portals do in a second. So for here, I place the swamp down here, token goes on there, and my turn is over. End of my turn, I'll restart the marketplace with a new tile and a new token. The next player will go. This play proceeds clockwise until all players' grids are completely full. So the game is extremely simple. It's just knowing what tiles and what terrain tiles do different points. So let's go through a few of these together. So first of all, dungeon tiles each have a base value of 1, and it also gains a point for each different type of terrain that borders it for a maximum of 5 points. So if I place this down here, it's worth 1 point. If I get a forest here, it's now worth 2 points. If I get a cave, it's now worth 3 points. If I get a forest again though, it's still only worth 3 points because it's not a different terrain type. So now onto the forest terrains. These are based on the number of forests on your map in total. So 1 is worth 1 point, 2 is worth 3, 3 is worth 6, 4 is worth 10, and 5 is worth 15. If that's hard to remember, just look at the terrain tile itself and I'll tell you down here which one each one is worth. Next we have the graveyard tiles. These have a base value which can change. This one here tells me it has a base value of 2 points. And this means that at the end of the game, the boss with the most graveyard tiles on their board scores 5 points and the second player scores 2 points. You can see down there, first and second crown. Next up are the camp tiles. These are based on how many unique camp tiles are on your map. So each camp tile has a different flag. If they're different flags, you get more points. So if I had two tiles of blue, 2 blue flags, it's still worth 1 point. So if I had a blue flag and a red flag, it'd be worth 4 points. If I had a blue, red and black flag, it's worth 9 points. So the more variety of camp tiles, you get more points. Next up are the cave tiles. These have a base value of 1, and if they get extra points if they're bordering any mountainous parts of the map. So any of these parts of the map have a little mountain range, so if I put this here, or down here, or even here, or here, it's extra points. This tells me that it's worth 1 point to place it there, or there. Place it next to, adjacent to one of these areas, it's worth an extra 2 points, so 3 points in total. Finally, the swamps have a base value of 1 point. Additional point if it borders a watery part of the board, so here, or here, or here. And also additional point if next to at least one other swamp for a maximum of 3 points. Now I'm not going to go through all the tiles, that's just the basic tiles and terrain types. So what else is next? So let's look at some more things. So mini bosses all have a base value of 2 points. They don't count towards your banner monsters, they can't be synergized with monsters, they just have a set value of 2 points in your dungeon. Crystals are worth 1 point per terrain tile of that crystal's type on your map. So if I draw this from up here, it'll go straight down here into my layer. End of the game, I'll get extra points for each camp tile I have on my board. And finally, we have the portal tokens. These aren't worth any points, but once per turn, you may use these, flip them over to the other side, to reposition up to 2 monsters or mini bosses on your map. So if I had, say, a few tiles over here and a few monsters out, I could then flip this over to rearrange monsters, switch them around as I see fit. So how do the monsters score points? So each straight line of 2, 3 or 4 of the same monster type is called a band. So we have a line of 3 here, 3 cave monsters, and a line of 2 going down here, you can see there. Bands are scored according to the size of the band. There's a little table in the back of the quick guide rules to tell you how they work. But a single monster token may be counted both horizontal and vertical as a band. This counts as both a 3 set and a 2 set. If a monster matches the terrain, they score a point at the end of the game. So for instance, I've already got here a matching monster here, here and here. These 3 monsters, here, 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 do not match their terrain types. Their little symbol there does not match. They score no points individually. But I get at least 1, 2, 3 points from these monsters. These here will score me 5 points. There's a little chart at the back of the guide, just tell you, if you just look at the guide down here, it does say, so a band of 2 scores 2 points, a band of 3 scores 5, a band of 4 scores 7 points in total. So I've got 5 points from these up here, 2 points from these down here. I also get a point because it's matches, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Obviously the more you get, the more matching monsters and the more band of the same monsters score you more points. Also, mini bosses just score a base value of 2, no matter where they are on the map. And that concludes my basic setup, components and gameplay mechanics of Overboss. Obviously there's more to this, there's more tiles, the castles, volcanoes, sunny circles, cloud islands and deserts all have more unique scoring methods, but they're a little more complicated. Once you get used to the basics, you can then upgrade by these. You can even add 1 or 2 or more slowly over time, get used to these terrain types. You can also add in the command cards, so a bit more of a challenge, and also give each player a monster their own boss, Give them 2 face-down bosses, let them pick one, and then use their powers later on in the game. So that's it for this section. We're going to skip now to my final thoughts for Overboss. So, my final thoughts on Overboss, what do I think? Overboss is a great game. It's so great because it's so simple. And that does not mean it's a bad game. Its simplicity is great because apart from memorizing the tokens and what scores, what certain tiles do, it's really simple. It's just 2 actions, just draft and place. This game has a really great curve. Basically, the basics of the game are really simple. Using the 5 suggested tile types for new players, it's really simple. You can just pick tiles, pick tokens, place them down, and get your points to win. But the way this works is it adds more layers as you play. So you start off by doing this, then you've got the extra terrain types and tokens that get increasingly more difficult and more challenging, more complex. Then you can add in the boss monster cards if you want a bit more playability of their abilities and unique scoring points. And then you can also add in the extra cards to help manipulate and change the battlefield in slight ways. So this works well for people of all ages, younger people, kids who aren't used to these kind of games. They can just play straight into this using the basic tiles and tokens, just drafting tiles, place them down, scoring points at the end. You can even do the points for them and they'll have a great time just placing their own unique dungeon pieces down. And then players who want a more competitive and longer game, you can flip the board over, play the longer side of the board and use their monster cards, their abilities, and then get these massive big scores at the end of the game. The only negative thing I find with this game is it can take a little while to get all the tiles shuffled. Because the map tiles are quite chunky and quite big, getting them all shuffled up and mixed up, then placed out can be quite tedious and quite long-winded. Once you've got the game out, it's not too bad. You just take out the tiles you aren't using to replace the new ones in. But the initial setup time is not long, it's just a bit clunky with the tiles. That's why I recommend to place them down in 4 distinct piles and take one from each pile as you go along, so you get a full random selection of cards and tiles. As tile placement games go, it's one of my favourites. Not only the mechanics really great and the monster abilities and the style and effort of this game just really speaks to me, but I just love the artwork and the theme. It just stands out, it's so vibrant. I'll take pictures of this game on my phone, it just looks great. The style of the cards, I love how all the tokens and pieces are all different. Even ones from the same category, even all, let's say the forest tiles, they're all different, they're all unique. They aren't just the same grass and tree, they're all different. And it just really shows attention to detail in this game. Brotherwise Games done a great game here, and I can't wait to see what else they're going to bring out for this game. Any more expansions will be great, any more monsters or tiles. So positives to this game are, it's a great learning curve, easy to learn, fun to master. It's not difficult to master, it's fun to master. It's fun to get know all the tiles and tokens, and it can be very competitive. It's got a solo mode too, a great little campaign mode, which is really fun. I really enjoyed that. It's also very addictive because you want to get a better score, you want to beat your score you got previously. You might do really well and get a really high score, then think, I've got to beat that score, I've got to go again. I've got to use different combinations of tiles and tokens, different bosses and monsters. There's quite a bit of replayability in this box too. There's 10 tile types, there's plenty of monsters, plenty of cards to use. Apart from the negatives, I can only say the tiles are quite clunky, and shuffling the tiles up and getting them all out and ready can be a little tedious and time consuming. But other than that, it is a very, very solid game, extremely fun to play, and I give this a great 8 out of 10. It's very, very fun. And that's it for my review of Overboss. If you want to see any gameplay footage, a solo campaign playthrough, or any more details in this game, let me know in the comments down below and let you think of the video, and like and subscribe if you can, and thanks for watching.